Hi, my name is Hannah Rodriguez. I'm a student at Liberty University, and I'm reviewing Oliver, produced by the Liberty University Department of Theater Arts in Lynchburg, Virginia, which I viewed in the Tower Theater on Tuesday, December 7th, 2021. When I entered the theater, the audience was excited to watch the familiar musical. Since I have seen Oliver before and had seen other productions by the Liberty University Department of Theater Arts, I knew that I was in for an amazing story and performance. The sets designed by Andrew Morgan and built by master carpenter Daniel Hayden included two large two-story wagons painted to be brick buildings on center stage left and center stage right. Upstage, there was a bridge that moved between upstage and downstage. The set would lead someone to think the play was in a 19th century London setting. Throughout the first act, the set changed several times to show the varying locations of a child's orphanage and workhouse, the undertaker's home and store, a street in London, and Fagin's lair. In the opening scene, there was a small choir on top of the bridge that were holding candles. Once they finished singing, the lights went dim and the two wagons on the side of the stages began to move into the workhouse location. Four maids brought out two tables that had long benches on top of them, which would be the setting of the workhouse for the first two scenes. The workhouse is where we first see the neglect of children in the musical. The children desire food but are never able to eat anything except for the gruel that the maids put into their dishes. When Oliver asks for more food, Mr. Bumble, played by Armin Davis, and Widow Corney, played by Holly Stewart, are strategically blocked by director Chris Nelson to stand over Oliver at the top of the staircase. Mr. Bumble makes the decision to sell Oliver, and as he walks from upstage to downstage, the set changes so that the bridge is visible to show that they are now in the streets of London. In the scene set at the Undertaker's, a drop set piece came in from the fly. It created a separation between the London streets that were seen in Boy for Sale and the Undertaker's home. Set downstage center, there was a coffin that would be a main aspect of the song, That's Your Funeral, and also displayed that the scene was happening in a grim location. After Oliver, played by Winton Ware, ran away from the Undertaker's, he found himself out on the streets of London. This is where Oliver would meet the Artful Dodger, played by an understudy who was not listed in the program, but who was possibly Jacob Hodges. The Artful Dodger would lead Oliver around the London street before bringing him to Fagin's lair. Fagin, played by Anthony LaBianca, was an older man that led a group of children into a life of crime. The set of Fagin's lair included several chests where children slept, a table, and a laundry line. Fagin had a space that was closed off from the children by several torn brown curtains. The lair is where Nancy, played by Sidney Borchers, and Bet, played by Emma King, would be introduced, as well as Bill Sykes, played by Elias Perez. In Act 2, the scenes would take place in a bar, Fagin's lair, a London street, the workhouse, Mr. Brownland's home, and at the London Bridge. In the bar scene, there was a lot of choreography that illustrated the bar setting. The choreographer of the show, Aubrey Siebert, took pedestrian movements and created strong choreographical pieces throughout the musical. In Mr. Brownland's home, there was a wood fireplace with a Christmas wreath and mantle that dropped down from the fly. There was also a large red curtain drop as well. This displayed the elegance of the home and the wealth of the Brownland family. Mr. Brownland, played by Jackson Castile, had two fancy leather chairs that were placed in front of the fireplace, facing each other with a painted portrait of his daughter Agnes above the Christmas-themed decor. The costumes created by head costume designer Lynn Forth were characteristic of an 1850s lower-class community attire. The lower-class women wore long dresses of dull colors and aprons that were various shades of brown. The lower-class men wore neutral-colored suits with patches on them. The upper-class men wore black suits with colorful vests and top hats. The upper-class women also had long dresses, but they had accessories like fancy lace umbrellas and decorated shawls. The orphans wore ragged jeans and a long sleeve and a brown vest and brown shoes. The upper-class children wore long dresses and decorative coats that had multiple layers. The leading female actor, Nancy, wore a light blue dress that had a satin red piece underneath the top of the vest that spilled out in front of the skirt. In Papa, she added a red satin shawl onto her attire. Fagin wore a long orange jacket with yellow decorative patterns, tan bottoms, and high socks. Bill Sykes wore a long black trench coat and black hat and dark bottoms with black shoes. He carried around a cane that had a goldish top piece, which he used to threaten people and to kill Nancy in the final scene. In this final scene, Greg Vinson, the sound designer, included the sound of a gunshot being fired from an officer's gun to illustrate the end of Bill Sykes' life. The overall conflict in the show is about class and social status between the upper and lower class and the community versus the thieves. There was also the issue of abuse that was covered in the neglect of the orphans at the workhouse and in the streets, as well as the abuse of Nancy by Bill Sykes. The lighting designer Mark Howison stuck with a green, light blue, royal blue, and purple lighting color scheme for scenes changes and for special moments. Before the show began, there was a projection of the London Harbor on the closed curtain with green lighting and fog surrounding the Proscenium Theater. Howison used the lighting to set the gloomy mood for the show. In special moments like Nancy's As Long as He Needs Me, there was a cool white spot on Nancy and purple lighting in the background. I thought that it was powerful that Howison used the color purple during Nancy's solo, since purple is the color associated with domestic abuse, and Nancy is very obviously abused by Bill Sykes, her husband. Although Oliver was set about 170 years ago, many of the issues are still relevant to current times. There are current issues with abuse and also neglect of children that are present today which parallel the show. The show was powerful in demonstrating these issues throughout the story of a poor boy named Oliver Twist.